Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video. I am extremely excited for today's video. Currently, in about an hour, I'm about to get my first blood work done ever. So as of now, I've been on a water fast for the last 12 hours, only drinking water, no other liquids, no other foods. For the last 48 hours, I stopped all my supplementation. So my creatine, my pre-workout, my multivitamins. I also stopped taking melatonin, which was kind of a hit because recently I haven't been able to sleep. So I've been using melatonin to help me with my sleep. And then yesterday I took a rest day. So for the last 24 hours before your blood test, you're not supposed to do any strenuous activities. And all those rules are just set in place so you can have the most accurate results without anything influencing them. I've been meaning to get my blood work done for a long time. I think it's very beneficial and everyone should be getting it done at least once a year. I recommend doing it more. I'm going to start doing it maybe twice a year. And it's primarily because you might think that you're healthy when you're looking at yourself from the outside, but on the inside it might be a completely different story. And it's best to detect things early like cancer or any other diseases. Hopefully that never happens to any one of us. But it's always better to have an early detection than to find out you have it later on. But it's also good to stay on top of your health. So by doing your blood work, you'll know whether if you're in the optimal range, if you're in the lower range, or if you're in the higher range, and what that means for your health and how you can also fix that. So it's a no-brainer. That's literally one of the best ways to keep on top of your health. I've been looking at many labs that do blood work and it's actually super expensive. Like a hormone panel that just tests for your testosterone, estrogen, and basic hormones costs around $70. And then if you want to do like a lipid panel, it costs another $50. If you want to do a kidney panel, another $50. So I found this one company called Superpower and they test around 100 plus biomarkers for $200. So I'll just briefly show you guys a couple of the biomarkers that they test for, and then approximately in around 7 to 10 days all my results should be back, and then we'll go through the results thoroughly and then we'll see where my testosterone is at, because that's the main thing that everyone cares about, their test. So either my testosterone levels will be equivalent to a middle school girl, or hopefully it's on the higher end like Larry Wheels, and then I can at least say that Larry Wheels and I have something in common. All right, so this is their website. It's called Superpower and it's actually really cool because based on your blood work, they'll give you a biological score and they explain what each biomarker means and they tell you like how to fix it if you're on the higher end or the lower end. So starting off over here, we have heart and vascular health biomarkers. So the most important ones from here that I know are like HDL cholesterol. So that's a good cholesterol. And then your LDL, which is a bad cholesterol. So over here, like you can see, it says bad cholesterol that can build up in arteries. High levels increase risk of heart disease and stroke. And then you have your triglycerides, a type of fat in blood. High risk can increase risk of heart disease. So we don't want any of that. And then they give you your LDL, HDL ratio. This is another one, ApoB, a protein that carries bad cholesterol. And there's other panels like the advanced panel over here, but I have the basic panel, which is $200. And then we got liver health biomarkers. So alkaline phosphates, an enzyme found in liver and bones. Elevated levels may indicate liver diseases or bone disorders. I don't really know much about the liver biomarkers like that. Then we have the kidney biomarkers. We have calcium, which is really important for bones, muscle, and nerves. And then we have creatinine. So I'm assuming this is going to be really high for me because I took creatine. We also have chloride, sodium, and then we have sex hormone biomarkers, which is like the main one everyone cares about. So you have your total testosterone. So that's a primary male hormone, affects muscle mass, bone density, mood, and sexual function. Then we have sex hormone binding globulin, a protein that binds sex hormones. And then we have testosterone that's bioavailable. So testosterone that's available for use by tissues. And then you also have free testosterone, so the active form of testosterone not bound to proteins. So there's 3 different tests for your testosterone, which are all very important. And then you have your estradiol, which is also estrogen, I believe. And you also want that to be in the normal range. You don't want it to be too low or too high. And that's with all hormones. You know, people think like, oh, it's estrogen, it's the female hormone. You know, we need to suppress that hormone. But that's not true. You want everything to be in the normal range. So one of the hormones that's missing from the normal panel that I wish I had was prolactin. And then you have your metabolic health biomarkers, so like glucose, blood sugar levels, and then your nutrient biomarkers like hemoglobin. This is really important, red blood cell count. So you want to know how much oxygen is being carried in your body, your protein total amount of protein in blood. You don't want to have high amounts of that. Your vitamin D, this is really important. Bone problems, muscle weaknesses, immune dysfunction. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like it tells you what literally everything means. And then your inflammation biomarkers, you don't want high inflammation, which is bad for recovery. The thyroid health biomarkers, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormones, really important. And then your energy biomarkers, so cortisol. This is really important too, the stress hormone. Cortisol could literally lower your test, which in turn could prevent you from recovering and also induce muscle loss. And then you also got your iron, essential mineral for oxygen transport. You know, this channel's Iron Han, so this is a very important biomarker. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you're watching this video. And then you got your immune system biomarkers like your white blood cells, and then all these specific types of white blood cells, lymphocytes, monocytes, basophils. Very cool stuff. I think the rest of this is for like other panels. So yeah, I'm very excited, but I think right now it's time for me to go get my blood drawn. All right, y'all, so just got my blood drawn. They took around like 6 vials that were like 8 milliliters each. A lot of blood from me. Now all I gotta do is just wait around like 6-7 days and hopefully get the results back. So I'll see you guys in a week, and hopefully all the results come back perfect. All right, y'all, so the results just came back. You know, honestly, it was a very fast turnaround time. It only took them 2 days for me to get my results back. So excluding Saturday and Sunday, my results came back on Tuesday, and I took my blood test on Friday. So I already took a peek at the results, and overall they're pretty good, but there are a couple of things that raised my awareness. And you know, that's the whole point of getting your blood work done. It's a good preventative from things getting worse. So I'm gonna go over the results with you guys, show you guys what's good, show you guys what's bad, what I need to improve on, and what concerns I have. All right, guys, so these are my results. They give me like a superpower score, which like they take all my results and combine them and give me a score. What I thought was cool is my biological age. They're saying I'm 18.2 years old, and they're saying I'm 6.2 years younger than my actual age, which is pretty cool. So this is the important stuff. My biomarkers, they tested at 105 total. I have 61 in the optimal range, 28 in normal, and 16 out of range. So these are all my results. Now here is probably my biggest concern, and that is to do with my cholesterol. Now my LDL, which is my bad cholesterol, it's called low density lipids, is very, very high, and I have no clue why that's the case. And you know, over here, you know, they give you questions that you can ask their chat AI, but then they also give you a little brief description of what is LDL cholesterol, you know, why is LDL important, and what you can do to lower your LDL. LDL cholesterol is sometimes called the bad cholesterol because it can build up in your arteries and form plaques, which can narrow or block your blood flow and increase your risk of heart disease and stroke. And LDL cholesterol also has pro-inflammatory and pro-oxidant properties that can damage your blood vessels. And then it gives you recommendations of what you can do to lower your LDL cholesterol. Exercise regularly, I do that. Quit smoking, manage your weight. I do manage my weight. I'm not overweight. Limit your alcohol. I don't drink alcohol. So I find that really cool because it tells you what it means if you're in the optimal range, the lower range, or the higher range, and then it gives you tips on what you should do. I'll get more into that at the end because it gives me like an action plan of what I need to prioritize and what supplementations and what I can do in my lifestyle to fix all these. My cholesterol total is really high too, and then my HDL, you know, your good cholesterol, high density lipids, is on the lower end. So you want that to be the opposite. You want your HDL to be high and your LDL to be low. Over here, you know, also mentions your HDL cholesterol has been called the good cholesterol because it helps remove excess cholesterol from your blood and prevents it from building up in your arteries. HDL cholesterol also has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties that can protect your blood vessels from damage. So they basically do the polar opposite things. My HDL is at 50 when the optimal range is from, you know, 60 and above, and my LDL is 153, which is on the higher end when the optimal range is 0 to 75. So I really need to get this checked out. You know, I need to take this information and go to my primary care and ask them what I can do to figure this out, because that is like a big concern. Like I am kind of worried about that, I'm not gonna lie. This is also really high. The main lipoproteins that ABOP binds to are low density lipoprotein. These are known as bad cholesterol. They can deposit on the walls of arteries and form plaques. A waxy substance that can narrow. Okay, I don't want that's just getting me kind of depressed. But yeah, so another indicator of having high levels of LDL. Not good information, not good information. But, you know, that's the whole reason of getting the blood work done. Now I know this, now I could take this and, you know, take it to my doctors and more knowledgeable people and, you know, get them to guide me to the right direction. You know, if I didn't know this, you know, I was just living my life and, you know, one day, you know, astaghfirullah, hopefully it never happens, but, you know, I get something serious, you're just caught off guard and you're not prepared. But at least with this information, I could do what's in my power to, you know, prevent anything from happening to me. And that's why I recommend everyone getting their blood work done. Going along, you know, my glucose is good. All this stuff looks good. Yeah, my cholesterol HDL ratio is, you know, low. Yeah, so same thing. My LDL cholesterol over my total cholesterol is high. If you keep going, my red blood cell is good. So this is the second biggest concern. My white blood cell count is kind of off. So if you look at my white blood cell count, is really low. And then, you know, if you keep going, my lymphocytes. This is another type of white blood cell, but this is really high, and that's bad because that means like majority of my white blood cells are this type of white blood cell. But then if I look at my neutrophils, these are very low, and these are probably one of the more important white blood cells because they are the body's first line of defense against infections. So because my lymphocytes are taking up majority of my total white blood cells and my neutrophils are on the lower end, that means my body has a harder time fighting off infections. And what's concerning about that is I haven't gotten sick in a long time. So because my white blood cell counts are off, but I haven't gotten sick, it could have an indication that my body is fighting something internally. You know, I don't want to put anything out there. It could link to some like immune disorder, autoimmune disease, like it was talking about my lymphocytes. And you know, they're obviously good too, but you don't want your lymphocytes to be on the higher end. So it mentions here, what does a high out of range level mean? A high lymphocyte count known as lymphocytosis can indicate an ongoing infection, an autoimmune disease, or in rare cases, blood cancers or chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Yeah, that's like the worst case scenario where, you know, I have like blood cancer, astaghfirullah, you know, inshallah that never happens. Same thing with the lipid stuff, you know, it's good to know this stuff, you know. I never got my blood work done. I wish I got this done earlier so then I could track over time how my levels are changing, but it's better to start sooner than later. So if you keep going, my iron is good. All this stuff is, you know, good, you know, globulin's good. My creatinine is pretty high. I was predicting it was going to be high because I take creatine as a supplement, but to counteract that, you just need to drink out more water to flush it out. I used to be very strict on my water intake. I used to drink a gallon every single day. I kind of stopped doing that, but I got back on track about drinking water for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that will level out my creatinine levels. All my electrolytes look good. Sodium, potassium, you know, all looking pretty good. Thyroid stimulating hormone, another very important thing, it's high. It's a hormone produced by the pituitary gland in the brain that tells the thyroid gland how much thyroid hormones T4 and T3 to release into the bloodstream. Thyroid hormones are important for regulating metabolism, growth, development, and body temperature. If it's too high or too low, it's actually really bad. I'm on the higher end of the optimal range. So here you go. The information I've been dying to figure out, my testosterone levels. Now, you have two types of testosterone levels to check for. You have your total test, which is on the higher end, 719, when the optimal is from 700 to 960. Now, your total test is the amount of testosterone your body is producing, but that doesn't mean that your body is able to use all of it. You know, if I was able to use 700, that would be insane. I'll show you guys the other form of testosterone is your free testosterone. Now, this is on the lower end, 58, when the optimal is 100 to 200. People that are on steroids, their free testosterone are in the thousands. So as it explains here, testosterone exists in two main forms in the blood: free, not attached to anything, and bound, attached to proteins. Free testosterone is more biologically active and available for your tissues to use. My total is high, but my free is low. And what's to blame for that is your SHBH, your sex hormone binding globulin, which is really high. Your sex hormone binding globulin is a protein that is produced in the liver, and it binds to certain sex hormones such as testosterone, estradiol, and dihydrotestosterone. It carries these hormones through the blood and controls their amount and distribution. It has a higher affinity for male hormones. What does a high range mean? But basically, if you have a high SHBH, that's basically binding to your testosterone and preventing your body and your tissues from using your testosterone. My estradiol, which is your estrogen levels, are in the optimal range, but you know, on the higher end. So you can say I have low test and high estrogen. Do what you want with that information. You know, flame me down in the comments. I'm like a female at this point, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, that's it for all the biomarkers. What's really cool with this information is, you know, they give you the information, you know, they break it down, they tell you why your levels are low or high, but then they do this thing where they give you an action plan. They basically, you know, tell you your top health priorities and then recommend what supplements you should take and what you should do with that information. So they're saying my top health priority is my white blood cell counts are all over the place. So your infection fighting white cells, neutrophils are low, and your overall white count is on the low side with a higher share of lymphocytes. They tell you what it means. This increases your risk of bacterial infections and can slow recovery from hard training. You know, important given your current cut and heavy lifting. And what's cool is before you do the test, they ask you information about what supplements you're taking, what your lifestyle's like, what your diet's like. And the more information you give it, the better they can give you curated recommendations. They know that I'm on the cut. They know that I lift heavy. Potential causes, like I said, drivers include recent viral illnesses, which I mentioned I haven't gotten ill in a long time. Very low calories and high training load, micronutrient imbalance, low copper from regular zinc use. So I didn't know that. I take zinc as a supplement. I think I get a little bit of copper from my multivitamins, but now I know that my copper could be suppressed because of my regular zinc use. And then your recommended action, so medical care, which is probably the best thing to do. Instead of figuring out what supplements you need to take and figuring shit out on your own, it's better to go to the doctor, a professional, and ask them what they think you should do. And then they also recommend fuel and deload for the next 1 to 2 weeks, and then sleep and hygiene. Aim for 8 hours nightly. I just got the Apple Watch Ultra 3 and I've been tracking my sleep. I've been getting around like 4 to 6 hours. I'm gonna really focus on my sleep. I did not take sleeping seriously for a long time. As you get older, you understand how valuable your sleep is. And then it recommends these supplements, so probiotics and then NAC. Another issue, they're saying my vitamin D is higher. I take vitamin D and they're saying it's most likely from my vitamin D supplementation, so I'm lowering my vitamin D supplementation. Recommended product, magnesium glycinate. For me, this is not a medium priority, bro. This is a high priority, but they're saying this is a medium priority. The number of cholesterol carrying particles, ApoB and LDL, are elevated, while HDL is okay and triglycerides are low. Higher particle burden raises plaque risk over decades, even at 24, so dialing this down now pays off in the long term. Contributors include high saturated fat intake, butter, fatty red meat, and coconut oil. I don't have none of that. I don't consume any of that. I'm assuming this is a genetic influence, because if you guys didn't know, Bengalis, we're known to have high cholesterol levels, and a lot of Bengalis get diabetes, so that's definitely like a genetic factor, because my mom has diabetes, all of her sisters have diabetes, and their cholesterol's all over the place. What's funny is my dad also has the same issue with his white blood cells. Doctors tested it out, they sent him to an oncologist, and they said that he was fine, and they recommend red yeast rice and COQ. Here's the last one, my testosterone levels. So your total testosterone is strong, but your usable fraction free / bioavailable is lower because the binding protein SHBH is high. What this means, aligned with lower libido or energy, improving carbs / calorie, sleep, and training load often lowers SHBH and raises free test. Potential causes: caloric deficit, low carb intake, shorter sleep hours, stress, training load, minor thyroid shifts can raise SHBH. Proper carb time meals before and after lifting, and avoid prolonged very low carb phases during cuts. I am guilty of, I'm not gonna lie, my carbs are like at 80 grams right now. This is definitely one of the biggest things I need to focus on, getting 8 hours of sleep, bro. Train smarter, keep lifting, but cap out all sessions and add 1 full rest day weekly to reduce stress loads. So I think I'm gonna start doing like 2 rest days a week. I'm actually doing that right now. Today is my 2nd rest day, and they recommend ashwagandha. And then your protocol, they go over the supplements they want you to take, and then getting your blood work done again. To review the steps and track improvements, schedule your follow blood panel in 3 months. So then they also have this AI chat bot, which you could ask any questions that you want, and it helps you, understand things better. Since it already knows your results and it knows what supplements you take, and it has all this information, it could give you more accurate information catered towards you. The main idea of this video is it's better to detect things early and get your blood work done to figure this thing out later on, have it be a much worse scenario than it should be. Would I recommend you getting your blood work done from Superpower like I did? Yes and no. If you need to get your blood work done immediately, you can't really wait, and you want help understanding what each biomarker means and how to achieve the optimal range, I would recommend it. But also, you could do it through your doctors. If you have health insurance, you could specify what panels you want, and then your results won't look like what it looked like for me. It'll just give you a number. But we have ChatGPT now, so you could basically get the same information by taking your results and then setting it to ChatGPT and then asking it to summarize it for you. This software, they're a new startup, they basically did that thing where they have an integrated AI and it's telling you all this information from that. So you just need to do that manually. And I don't know how much money you could save by doing it like that, but you could definitely save, a couple bucks. But yeah, I'm going to conclude the video over here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you leave a like, and then comment down below what you think I should do for my cholesterol levels, for my white blood cell count, or my testosterone, if you guys have experienced anything similar. So I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace.